Welcome to my Cyte 09 build guide. By the end of this video, your Cyte gameplay will look just like this.
Spent Exilizer has been retired.
Today, I'll be showing you two builds for Cyte. First, the classic Kuva Sobek Acid Shells setup, and then the infinite ammo Kuva Zarr build. I've had a lot of people asking about my Cyte setup ever since the Void Cascade level cap video, and with the new Vallis Undermine update, there's some major changes to the Sobek build especially. So with all that in mind, let's get into the video. Before we dive into the builds, let's do a quick overview of Acid Shells. This will make the rest of the setup easier to follow. When you kill an enemy with acid shells, they explode in a 15-meter radius. The reason this pairs so well with Cyte is because that explosion procs resupply, letting you nuke entire crowds of enemies with ease. And here's the crazy part. Those explosions can chain together. Each acid shell's blast can trigger more explosions, creating a chain reaction that can wipe out areas potentially much larger than 15 meters. The only thing on Cyte that actually affects acid shells is resupply, and faction mods. Critical hits and the progenitor bonus on your Sobek don't affect acid shells directly, they only help with the initial kills. That's why you won't see any crit mods on the Sobek build later. Anything that buffs resupply will indirectly boost acid shells, things like electric mods, electric shards, or elementalist mods. Now, you might be wondering, why electric? Why not heat or toxin? First, electric damage triggers instantly, while heat has about a 1-second delay. Electric also comes with its own 3-meter AoE, can be boosted even further with violet electric shards, and shotguns get access to primed charged shell for even more scaling. All of that together makes electric the clear best element for this setup. Alright, let's get into the builds. I'll start with the shards I'm running. I'm using 4 Tau Violet shards to boost our electric procs, which also amplifies resupply. You can go with 5 Tau electric shards, but I like keeping 1 Tau casting speed shard. It's a nice balance between damage and quality of life. Now for the Cyte build itself. The big change in the latest update is that we're using the new Subsume Bright Bonnet instead of Nourish. It's the perfect Subsume for this setup. It gives us an ability strength boost, the most important stat for Cyte 09. On top of that, Bright Bonnet usually gives enough energy to skip things like Arcane Energize or Equilibrium, though you can still run them for extra comfort. It's basically Empower and Dispensary combined into one ability. All of the mods you see here are the mandatory ones. I'll break down what to use in the empty slots next. Corrosive Projection indirectly buffs acid shells, since it reduces enemy armor, making your resupply procs and explosions hit a bit harder. You can also run Growing Power as your aura if you prefer, and Shield Disruption against Corpus. The most important stat for Cyte 09 is Ability Strength, followed by Range and Duration. Primed Flow lets us hoard energy from Bright Bonnet, and while Resupply doesn't proc Archon Stretch, your companion can, and I'll show how in a moment. Catalyzing Shields gives us shield gating. Just make sure you're running Augur Seeker on your secondary or companion to actually gain shields, since we don't have any Augur mods on this build. Your first empty slot can be either Precision or Umbral Intensify, depending on your Forma setup. With Precision Intensify, you'll get better energy sustain through Bright Bonnet, but you'll lose about 25% strength on your other abilities compared to Umbral. The final mod slot is Personal Preference. I like running Constitution for extra duration, but Equilibrium is great for extra comfort, or you can slot in Augur Secrets for more strength. Now, if you're playing something like Defense, where a higher KPM speeds up the mission, which is really what this build excels at, I strongly recommend Arcane Tempo for extra fire rate. Having that extra fire rate, like you'll see in this clip, lets you spam the Sobek in all directions, nuking rooms and dramatically increasing your KPM. This clip's a bit extreme since I have fire rate buffs from Wisp active, but it really shows how powerful higher fire rate can be, a stat most people overlook on the Sobek. If you're running something like Void Cascade, where clear times don't matter as much, you can swap it out for Multificiency, Arcane Aegis, or Energize. All solid options depending on your playstyle. For my Exilis, I like running additional range, but you could also run Prime Sure-Footed or Power Drift. Now let's move on to the Sobek build. As mentioned earlier, the progenitor bonus doesn't matter, since it doesn't affect acid shells, so I recommend going with magnetic. The same goes for critical hits, which is why we're not modding for crit. All of the mods you see here are mandatory, including the faction mod. This one's non-negotiable. Faction mods are one of the only things in the game that boost acid shells. We're modding for viral since we're no longer using Nourish. Galvanized acceleration helps reduce falloff, and your flex slot is best used by a Riven. If you don't have one, your best alternatives are base damage mods, Shell Shock, or Shotgun Barrage. Just remember, a Riven isn't required. The footage you're seeing right now is me nuking level 10,000 enemies, completely Rivenless. This is the exact build I was using in that clip, if you were wondering. As for Riven stats, electric damage is your #1 priority, since it directly affects resupply, which in turn boosts acid shells. For your second and third stats, go for multi-shot, faction damage, or fire rate. Your secondary and melee don't matter here. Just make sure to run Augur Seeker on your secondary for shield gating. Now onto the companion setup, which is actually more important than most people think. I'm using Worm Prime, and here's the build I run. The main goal of our companion is to boost fire rate through Reinforced Bond, and proc Arcane Tempo, since the Sobek doesn't have any crit mods, making it tough to activate on its own. Cyte's passive gives up to 300% weak point critical chance, so it becomes much easier to activate Arcane Tempo later in the mission. And yes, your companion's weapon can proc Arcane Tempo. The combo of Coolant Leak and Manifold Bond, paired with a Sentinel weapon modded for electric, is what allows us to proc Archon Stretch. Now, for the weapon itself, just use any Sentinel weapon with high crit and fire rate to make proccing Arcane Tempo easier. This is the build I use. Now for the bonus Kuva Zarr build. This setup excels at clearing Exterminate missions insanely fast. It's what I use for Void Trace farming. It can also work in defense, especially in small tile sets like Hydron. For larger maps, the Sobek setup is still better. The biggest difference between this build and the Sobek setup is that we don't need any range, since we won't be using sights for stability. Enemy radar helps spot targets faster, speeding up your clear times. The combo of Fleeting Expertise and Streamline gets us to the efficiency cap of 175%. And pairing Energy Nexus with Nourish gives infinite energy. Arcane Agility, along with Arcane Acceleration, gives us parkour and fire rate for faster clears. If you're tied on capacity, you can swap Lightning Dash for Mobilize, and Prime Sure-Footed isn't required at all. Just use normal Sure-Footed and replace either Transient Fortitude or Umbral Intensify with Fortitude for full knockdown prevention. For the Zarr build itself, Toxin is the best progenitor. It combines with your electric shards for a viral corrosive combo. And if you don't have a Riven, just replace it with magnetic capacity. Secondary doesn't matter. Just like before, make sure you're running Augur Seeker for shield gating. For melee, go with Praetos for the parkour bonus. Companion choice also doesn't matter much. Just make sure to run Primed Animal Instinct for extra enemy radar. And that's going to do it for this one. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.